Okay, is everybody ready? I think we've reached that appointed time this morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Harnett County Board of Commissioners work session for this Tuesday, March the 9th. Commissioner McCoy has agreed to lead our pledge this morning and have our invocation. Commissioner McCoy?
Let's all stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us bow our heads. Our Father, the one that gives us all our blessings, and that renders us mercy and grace. Father, we thank you for this day that you have given us, and we thank you for allowing us to come here and hold this meeting for our county and the citizens of Harnett County. Lord, we ask you to guide us as we take care of the business, and let us all be on one accord. And I thank you for giving us some relief from this virus. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. I think first up on the agenda, we have some nonprofit presentations. Ms. Stewart, would you like to introduce those?
We do, Mr. Chairman. On the phone, we should have someone, maybe Tara Fish from Partnership for Children. So if you're there, you're up.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Sarah Fish, and I'm with the Harnett County Partnership for Children. And wanted to first and foremost thank the Harnett County government and the nonprofit group that awarded these grants. Our organization did receive $3,000 from you all, and that money has already been expended. We utilize that money for a program called Baby Steps in our community, and so a little bit of background on Baby Steps. Many of our infants and toddlers in this community live in poverty, and that's not a new statistic that you all are unaware of. It's something that we, as a rural county, deal with on a regular basis. And so the Harnett County Partnership for Children saw that there's a real need to provide basic essential needs for infants and toddlers in our community to help support their parents. And so we have partnered with the Harnett County Department of Social Services and the Harnett County Health Department, and working with their social workers to provide these items that oftentimes they're just financially is not the availability to provide for these children. One of the things that we typically are able to do is purchase diapers and wipes, and most people are unaware that 1 in 3 babies in this community is not adequately diapered. And so one of the first questions that I get typically is, well, why aren't they using government assistance to help pay for that? And the answer to that question is government assistance does not purchase diapers and wipes, pretty much. EBT, none of that will assist in diapers and wipes. And so we, as a partnership, took that on as a project to try to help support our local social workers and our health department in making sure that we're giving these babies the best start to life so that they can be successful in the K-12 public education system one day. And we've had great success with that. And because we have had great success with that, we utilized this $3,000 to help purchase some other things for infants and toddlers. And one of the largest issues we see as far as infant mortality is co-sleeping with parents. And so in poverty, most of these families do not have a crib or a separate safe sleep surface for children. And so the $3,000 that you all awarded us was used to purchase 40 pack and play for families, which is a portable type crib that will work with a child up until the age of 30 pounds. And so a lot of them utilize them for safety measures post whenever the children are big enough to be in a larger bed. And so we have been very happy to say that the social workers that we are working with Harnett County Health and the SS have all reported that this has increased participation in their program, responsiveness of parents, and it's also given these babies a safe place to sleep. It is a great, great part of our work in the community to make sure these parents have what they need to be successful, and just super happy that you all chose us to be able to administer these funds in this way. Are there any questions about the information that I presented?
Commissioners, anyone have any questions you'd like to ask Ms. Fish this morning? I don't see everybody shaking their head, but we do thank you for sharing with us this morning, and happy to hear that the funds were able to help with those diapers and wipes and with the packing place. So thanks again.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all. Have a great day.
You as well.
Okay, next we have the Rise and Shine Pit Bull Rescue. We should have Ronnie Kemp on the phone.
Good morning. This is Ronnie Kemp. I am the president of Rise and Shine Pit Bull Rescue. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. I'm excited to share with you this morning more about our impacts this year. But before I begin, I want to take a minute and just thank you for awarding funds to a small, newer nonprofit focus. We understand that the economics of grant funding were deeply affected by the COVID crisis, and we appreciate your commitment to helping us help the animals in our community. We entered this year with a goal of expanding our Warmer for Winter program, which provides cold weather protection and shelter to dogs in need. And I am proud to report that with your grant funds and a stellar partnership with Harnett County Animal Services, we've successfully delivered a remarkable 48 dog houses. We filled those houses with insulating wheat straw, and that's helping to keep each of those dogs warmer, safer, and drier. 2020 certainly has been a challenging year. The pandemic imposed unforeseen and a lot of devastating impacts on pet families in our community. Job losses and the demands of caring for loved ones' pets showed up in a very big way as pet food insecurity, and the financial weight of pet care overwhelms many. To help prevent unnecessary animal surrenders to our shelter, we launched an emergency pet food assistance program in April. And over the course of this year, we've delivered and distributed more than 2,500 pounds of pet food. We fully expect that need for pet food assistance to grow exponentially as the fallout from COVID lingers. In response to the growing need of pets in our community, we teamed up closely again with Harnett County Animal Services to help respond to calls for assistance. Our team provided dog food, shelter, and straw to more than 75 dogs. And roughly a third of those dogs served has been in collaboration with Animal Services. This partnership elevated the lives of dogs, increased our reach, and gave animal control officers vital tools to help resolve issues quickly and efficiently in the field. The result, we feel, has been a welcomed improvement in public perceptions and a reduction in animal welfare rechecks and owner surrenders to the shelter. This is definitely an ongoing effort, and at any given time, our outreach volunteers are actively assisting between 20 and 40 dogs. One thing that was very new for us this year was we began offering neighborhood-focused drive-through pet care events in which attendees were able to pick up pet food and supplies as needed. We had one event in Cameron in December, and at that event, Harnett Animal Services also joined us on site providing a rabies shot clinic. Each of the events, we had 2 this year, drew approximately 20 families and served over 60 pets. Rise and Shine recently established the county's first ever Little Pet Pantry, think animal version of a blessing box located just outside the shelter. The goal is to keep the box filled with donations of everyday pet essentials, and that pantry is available 24/7 and open to anyone who needs the items inside, and has quickly become a well-used and much appreciated resource. Lastly, I'd like to briefly recap the details of our funding and how those funds have been spent. We received a total grant of $2,500. To date, $2,144 has been spent directly on dog houses, and $245 has been spent on wheat straw. The remaining $109 in county funds will continue to be used for wheat straw for many of the dogs as we continue to check on them. In summary, the funding we received from Harnett County went directly towards the improvement of living conditions for many outside dogs in every area of the county. We've thoughtfully used these funds to make long-term and significant impacts on the lives of more than 75 dogs this year and the people who love them. It's definitely taken a village, and we're incredibly grateful to you and the team at Harnett County Animal Services for their continued partnership in reaching as many dogs as possible, easing the burden on families, and keeping pets at home where they are loved and needed now more than ever. And with that, I think Holly Hargrove from Animal Services was going to try and call in this morning. If she's on the line, I'll give her just a minute to join us.
Hello, this is Holly. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Holly Harper with Animal Services. I did want to just add that Rise and Shine does so much for the shelter here. And even aside from this program and funding mentioned here today, we're grateful. But definitely due to her, the Warmer for Winter initiative, there are countless animals who eat and sleep more comfortably because of the program. As mentioned, Warmer for Winter works close with our field services officers. So when I asked them if they had anything to say, they said, Ronnie is always there when you have a call out for assistance. She goes above and beyond. She never says no or I can't, and is willing to deliver anywhere in the county. So to close, I just would like to thank the community for this opportunity and say how thankful we are to have Rise and Shine in that program as a partner, and to thank you commissioners and to thank Rise and Shine. So thank you both.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any questions that you would like to ask this morning?
Mr. Chairman, it's Mark Johnson. I'd like to make a comment that Holly Hargrove, direct this at you. I've worked with you on a few things, and I appreciate what you do. You're a hard worker. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you so much for sharing for us this morning and for your hard work and what you are doing to try to provide for the needs and comfort of pets, especially the dogs in our district. We just thank you for that.
Okay.
Ms. Stewart.
Yes, next we have the Ronald McDonald House, and Brooke Berryman is on the line.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brooke Berryman, and I'm from the Ronald McDonald House. First, I just want to start, like everyone else, by saying thank you. I don't think I can adequately describe what this funding did for us over COVID. I've talked to several people in the community, and I think everyone was affected by the pandemic in their own way, and our families, I can definitely say the same for us. This funding really was crucial for providing for Harnett County families. And we have spent the entire funding, so a little bit about our stats since the funding began. In 2020, we served 15 families from Harnett County for 254 nights of care. That made Harnett County our top 5th county served. And then since July, since the fiscal year started, we have had one family here for 64 nights of care, and they're still here as their daughter is awaiting a surgery. A little bit about our mission overall. We're a home away from home for families whose children are seeking treatment at UNC Children's Hospital. So oftentimes that's babies who were born early that are in the NICU. Sometimes that's families with children with an eating disorder. Sometimes that's families getting chemo treatment for their child. The diagnoses really range all across the border, and we serve families from all counties in North Carolina and beyond. So when families come to our house, they're able to receive lodging, a clean room, bathroom, meals, support services, laundry, transportation. I like to describe it as the hospital's meeting their primary needs and healing their child, and we're able to come in and do all of those secondary things that you're not thinking about. You're not thinking about getting a haircut when your child is sick. You're not thinking about doing your laundry. So we're able to come and lift some of those burdens for these families. COVID did change that a lot, and so our numbers are a lot lower this year. Following CDC guidelines and Ronald McDonald House Charities Global, we did have to reduce capacity greatly to ensure that social distancing was met and that all families were safe. We do a COVID test for every family that stays with us, but we are delighted to have remained open throughout the entire pandemic and to have been able to serve families at all, because the added stress of a pandemic when you already have a sick child is unimaginable. Like I stated earlier, Harnett County is historically always a top 5 county, which makes this funding so important. we think about the families that come here, and some of them might be faced with really, really tough decisions had they not had a place to stay in Chapel Hill. We hope that that never happens, but because of you and because of so many other generous funders, families are able to come and have a place to lay their head at night, have a warm meal, and be able to be by their child. Because if any of you have been touched by childhood illness, I know I have, if you've had a child, period, you know that out of control feeling and not being able to care for your child, not being able to fix their needs is something that no parent ever hopes to experience. And so the fact that we can alleviate even just a few burdens is huge for these families. And with our Harnett County spending since July, we have only had $300 come in for Harnett County outside of your funding. So we truly could not have served the families in 2020, and then most of all, the family that's been here since July, or since the end of the year last year, without you all. And I did want to touch on that family briefly. You should have a handout with her picture. Her name's Zariah. The mom likes to call her Zariah, the little fighter. And then the nurses at the hospital call her Little Z. She is the cutest little baby. She's got some pictures of her, and she was born at 27 weeks, weighing only 1 pound. So her mom and her have been in Chapel Hill. Her mom's been staying with us over the past several months. So she's basically spent her entire life in the hospital, and we've been able to be there for her mother. And we were only able to do that because of you. So as more families come from Harnett County, we know childhood illness is not going away for the time being. So we are working diligently to continue serving them throughout the pandemic, especially those families that are traveling far. You've got the added stress of travel and all the things that happen when your child's in the hospital, all the unimaginables, and we really, really couldn't do it without our wonderful community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We look forward to continuing to serve your county.
Thank you, Ms. Berryman. Commissioners, anyone have a question or comment you'd like to ask or share with Ms. Berryman this morning? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Berryman, again, we thank you, and thank you for all you do for our citizens that are in need, and for this family that you've given us the little bit of information on. We do appreciate again what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have SAFE of Harnett County, Susanna Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Susana Rodriguez. I'm the Executive Director here at SAFE of Harnett County, and I just want to start by thanking you for this great opportunity for funding us. We received $5,000, and we are a domestic violence and sexual assault agency who serves victims of domestic violence and sexual assault and their families. We assist with increasing their strategies for safety, and we provide emergency shelter. We also have a 24-hour crisis line. We provide crisis counseling and support. We do the emergency hospital response, the courtroom companionship, restraining order assistance, and support groups. And we have not used entirely the whole amount. We're close to it. We mainly use the funding for direct client aid when someone is getting ready to transition and they may not have the deposits. So we assist with that, or if there is something that we don't often carry, diapers, car seats, whatever their needs are while they're here with us, we provide that. So when they're at our shelter, we provide them with everything: hygiene, food, clothing, whatever their needs are. So most of our money has gone directly to direct client aid, and we hope to finish using that shortly within the next 2 months. And I really don't see that as an issue, as we've had a full shelter pretty much since before COVID. We were able to, because of COVID, though, we've had residents a little bit longer. We were able to provide 1,289 nights of shelter to approximately 39 residents. And again, we thank you so much for considering SAFE of Harnett County and assisting us in providing safety for the families here in Harnett County.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing with us this morning. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay, thanks again, and it's with these the other folks that we've had talk. We certainly appreciate your commitment to our county and what you're doing for our citizens. Thank you. Hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Habitat for Humanity, Mike Blackman.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We hear you, thank you.
Okay, my name is Mike Blackman, and I'm the Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity of Harnett County. And I would like to start out, like everyone else, by thanking this board and previous boards for their continued support of Habitat for Humanity here in Harnett County. The year 2020, as you know, has been a very difficult year for most everyone due to the COVID pandemic, especially for nonprofits who depend on corporate sponsors, grants, personal contributions, and for Habitat, also mortgage payments of our current homeowners to help us continue our mission, which is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. With the restrictions placed on businesses by the governor and the restrictions placed on us by Habitat for Humanity International, 2020 has been somewhat of a struggle. With that being said, our board of directors have continued to move forward under those restrictions, and we've been able to complete the house that we were working on at 807 Rosemary Street in Irwin, and the dedication for that home was in October of 2020. And we've currently started another home in Irwin at 207 Cedarwood Drive in Irwin. We currently have the roof and the windows in and are working on the plumbing and electrical at the house under construction now. Our annual fundraising events had to be canceled. Some of our corporate sponsors were unable to help us as their businesses were affected as well. But with the county's generous contribution to us last year in the amount of $5,000, we were able to use those funds to purchase building materials for the current house being built in Irwin. And those funds helped us continue moving forward with our project without interruption. So on behalf of the Habitat Board of Directors and myself, I again would like to thank each and every one of you so much for your continued support. And I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments from Mr. Blackman? Seeing none, Mike, we thank you for speaking with us this morning, and again for all you and your organization do to help our citizens to have a home, and we certainly appreciate the partnership we have with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful day.
We hope the same for you. Thank you. Ms. Stewart?
Okay, last we have South Wake Conservationist.
Hi, my name is Judy Gardner, and I am the treasurer of Southway Conservation, which is a local chapter of the North Carolina Wildlife Federation. Again, we appreciate the opportunity, both of your funding and also the opportunity to share the outcomes of this charitable program, which is founded on the Farmers and Communities Managed Deer Program of Wildlife Federation. In collaboration with North Carolina Hunters for the Hungry, we host the Harnett area deer donation site in Millington. Our deer donation program goals are to reduce food insecurity, to improve public safety, to improve local crop yield, and to reduce food waste. Community collaboration and local financial support is key to the success of these initiatives, and our stakeholders include members of the agricultural community, landowners, local businesses, hunters, homeowners, professional meat processors, our local food pantries, community-united citizens, and lots of volunteers. Today, the Lillington Deer Donation Site has collected enough venison from local hunters to serve more than 42,000 meals, more than 11,000 meals in 2020 alone. We estimate that 78% of all families served through our program reside in Harnett County. Managing deer numbers through legal hunter harvest supports every member of our community, however. The Wildlife Commission estimates that there are between 29 and 45 deer per square mile in Harnett County. North Carolina Department of Transportation reported 2,300 vehicle collisions statewide in 2019, resulting in 5 deaths more than 2,800 injuries, and more than $8.5 million in vehicular damage. Deer accounted for 90% of the animals involved in these collisions. And because row crops can make up a significant portion of a deer's diet in agricultural communities, managing deer numbers in these communities also helps our local farmers to reduce crop damage caused by deer. Nearly 100% of every deer harvested in the fall and donated through this program is utilized. More than 4,600 pounds of deer waste was recycled last year into green building materials and other consumable uses. Deer heads were donated to UNC to help medical students learn how to perform tracheotomy. And we also support the Elks Foundation, who serve disabled veterans by providing custom wheelchair gloves made from the deer skin letters that we create. Our 2020 projected outcomes were achieved in spite of COVID impact. 82% of our projected fundraising goal was achieved. Intake of deer fell short by only 7. 3 Harnett County food programs are being served by this project now. And an early season shortfall of deer donations that was attributed to COVID-19 was mitigated by implementing a local marketing campaign driven by local support. In 2020, 56% of all deer donated came from hunters who were brand new to the program, far exceeding our growing hunter participation goals of 20% every year. Because our program is staffed entirely by volunteers, all expenditures are directly related to the delivery of processed meat. 100% of proceeds from Harnett County was used to pay deer processing fees of the 200 North Carolina Hunters for the Hungry. For their inspected processors participating in the North Carolina Hunters for the Hungry program agree to process meat at rates that are lower than offered to the public at large. I've provided a breakdown of income and expense for 2020. Can confirm that all funds contributed by Harnett County were spent, and invite you to ask any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any questions, comments? Well, thank you for sharing with us this morning. Certainly very informative and very unique opportunity that you're providing there. And we thank you for your support for our county. And again, as I said earlier, we appreciate our association with you and your organization. Hope you have a good day.
Thank you all.
Okay, I believe that concludes our nonprofit presentations for this morning. Next on the agenda, we have the Harnett County Schools Energy Performance Contract presentation. Ms. Stewart, you want to introduce these gentlemen this morning?
Sure, I'll be glad to. So we have the Harnett County Schools Maintenance Director, Steve Matthews, along with Engineer Jonathan Locklear.
Good morning. You can come on up to the podium if you'd like, and thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. Is it okay to remove these while we speak?
Sure.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you guys having us today. We are here on behalf of Harnett County Schools. First off, I'd like to thank you for all that you do for Harnett County Schools. And earlier this year, we were working with Renee and Lisa on the capital improvement project. And as you can see, I know you guys have had a report on that. We have a lot of needs in the school system. We have a lot of buildings that are getting older. And that's my job, to try to keep those running and keep all the teachers and children and parents happy at Harnett County Schools. And we kind of embarked a while back on looking at doing an energy performance contract. And Jonathan will explain a little bit more in depth on what that is and how that works. But I think it would be very beneficial for Harnett County Schools and Harnett County, because it's a way to take the money that we're already spending on energy and allow us to get some better equipment into schools, which would obviously help reduce energy bills in the future, but also put our children, teachers in a better environment in the school system. So I'm going to let Jonathan explain how this process works and why we're coming to you today at this point. So, Jonathan.
Thanks, Steve. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to take this off. You okay with that?
That's fine.
I can breathe a little bit and see. My glasses tend to fog up when I got those on. As Steve said, I appreciate the opportunity to come up here in front of you this morning. What I'm gonna be going over is probably a 5,000-foot flyover of this process that's really administered by the state and has been in process for about 20 years. So I'm gonna get right to it. If there's anything you know as I'm flipping through you want to talk about or discuss, please stop me. I want you to be well informed about what's going on. But again, also this is a condensed down version of what we're going over here. And I sort of labeled this just like the energy office is, just performance contracting 101. We'll just get on into the first slide here. The first one I've given you here is more or less just the acronyms. You're here as I go through this process or this presentation. There's quite a few on here, and it's about like military acronyms. If you don't know what you're looking at, you're just going to hear them. It's going to go right over your head. But I've got some of them here on the sheet. This is not all of them, but it's some of the bigger ones that I'll hit. And the biggest one on here that you just need to remember for right now is probably the IGA and the ESCO. The IGA is the process. When I get back to the slide, I'll just explain that a little bit more. But the ESCO is the company that would be performing this work. All right, next slide here. Let's see here if I can. Where do I click? Oh, there we go. This is just more or less a flyover of what I'm going to try to explain to you. What it is, how does it work, why use it, who has used it, what are the safeguards and guarantees, what is the cost, and what are the county benefits. Again, this is a school project, but the county will benefit directly and indirectly from this project. What performance contracting is, I think Steve sort of explained that. It's, in a nutshell, it's taking your inefficient equipment, utility equipment, be it chillers, boilers, lighting, your sprinkler water systems, natural gas systems, just taking those ineffective, no, I shouldn't say ineffective, but inefficient pieces of equipment that have been outdated and been in use for a while, and just either updating them or replacing them. And you use that savings to pay for your project. And this next slide that I've got on here more or less just explains that. I think I'm 2 slides down now. The next one on here just explains that. If you look to the left-hand side of that, it's where you're at right now. The next one would be the process of taking us from bringing an ESCO on board. And ESCO is just a company that has been approved through the state of North Carolina's LGC and other committees to be able to do this type of work inside of North Carolina. There's only about, there used to be about 16. I think we're down to about 8 or 9 now because of all the red tape and whatnot throughout the state with doing these projects. It's sort of to whittle down, it cut off the fat, so to say. So we're down to about 8. But anyway, the ESCO would be the company that has the capacity and the financial backing to do this type of project. Because as you see when I get on back to the back a little bit, there's a guarantee that they have to provide the school system that they're going to meet what they say they're going to do. The next slide or the next column on here is just shows the after the construction is done, after they went through the process and seen where you have your shortfalls at and what they can do to improve. And then the third column is, like I said, that's the after. The below is what you're paying to the utility companies after the fact, and the orange at the top is what you use to pay back for the equipment that you got. All right, next slide here. How does it work by law? All this is set in place through general statutes. I don't remember how old this is, but it's been around for a long time, at least 20 years or better, probably more like 30 years by now. But it has been in place for a while, and there has been a ton of these projects done. Matter of fact, about 5 years ago, DOT probably did one of the biggest ones in the state of North Carolina. It was statewide, where they went through and replaced lights on their interstates and other ports or side roads that they have.
And we done one in Harnett County in 2003.
Yes, sir. Next slide here. Get my clicker here to work. How does it work as far as construction? At all times, the school system is the owner of the project. And if you can look at this, see the slide here, I'd be on one side as the owner rep, helping the owner make sure that they're following protocol and also overseeing what the ESCO does for the owner. Your financing arm would be your team right now and your bond accounts and whatnot when we get to that point. But then also the ESCO would follow up on them. At all times, the school system will be in control of what's going on and what would be happening throughout the school. And the rest of that's just a matriculation down of who the ESCO would hire and get on board with them. Next slide here is how does it work? Again, it's just the Harnett County Schools in control of it. You go in, get an energy service agreement with the ESCO. At the end of the day, once they go through and see where your shortfalls are at, you sit down and come to an agreement or understanding and put all this into a big, probably a 200-page contract document that states exactly what they're going to do, exactly what the school system is going to do, and at the end of the day, use that savings to pay for your project. You going to say something, Steve? Oh, okay. This next slide is a very important slide, and this comes straight out of the energy offices when they're doing this presentation. Again, this slide has been on this presentation now for about 10 years or better. Anyway, what Steve was saying, we started this process not this past December before last. It got started, and we went through steps 1 and step 2. We're at the red line now, which is step 3. Step 3 is when you move forward with selecting an ESCO and get boots on the ground to start figuring out exactly what you have to try to figure out where you can actually go to with your savings.
Interject one. And where we're at here, for us to move forward, for these large companies to come in and bring in their engineers and calculate what kind of savings we can achieve, that's costly for them to do that. An investment grade audit can run anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000, which is a lot of money. But with us spending over $4 million a year in energy cost, if they can cut that in half, that's where we get all that money from. And that's kind of the point we're coming at with the commissioners today as we go through this process. And I didn't want that to be missed, but where the commissioners are so important to be able to do this, you have to agree to not cut the energy funding that we're already doing. So if we do nothing, we're going to continue to spend that $4 million. If we go forward with this process, then basically it would cut the energy bill, but they take the energy bill and use that money to buy the new equipment and hopefully take some things off the table that were in the capital improvement project, and hopefully they can pick up the bill on some of these chillers that cost over $200,000 to replace and some of the boilers that cost over $100,000 to replace.
Essentially taking the money that you would spend with Duke or Piedmont Natural Gas, taking that money, the savings off of that, and buying new equipment or lights to go in your schools is essentially what this boils down to. And again, the red line that's on this chart, this is, excuse my country on this, but this is where the rubber meets the road. Once you hit this red line, this is where you're making a commitment that so far we haven't committed anything but time. When you hit this point, you're saying, hey, we're committed to move forward with at least seeing what we have in our schools, and what Steve was talking about, the ESCO to come in and do all the due diligence to figure out what you have in place. They've got to spend time and effort and money, and they're going to expect to, if you don't move forward with this project, to get paid for that. So that's what that red line represents. It lets you know when you're committing money from the school system to start paying someone. We haven't crossed that line yet. We're standing at the threshold of it.
And won't cross it without your support.
Why use it? I think most of you probably already know the gist of this, but I'll just read through it real quick. You've got more needs right now than you've got money, and is the case with 90% of North Carolina schools. It's just a fact. There's more needs than there is money. We've got older schools that are equipment have been in 20 years plus, and the life of most equipment now is only about 15 years. So we're running schools off of equipment that's 20, in some places I've seen 30 and 40, 50 years old equipment in schools. We just, maintenance department's just been putting Band-Aids on it for so long, it's just at the point now it's just got to be replaced. As a matter of fact, I think the Freon for most of these units is outdated, and if you can find it anymore, you're lucky.
The chillers at Highland Elementary, they're 25 years old right now. I've got a couple other little items on here. I won't read them all, but I will tell you this. There is an opportunity in here where you can, it's open book pricing, and there's not a process that will allow you to do that any other way. You do a design, build. This is a little bit different. You select the ESCO, they come and do your design. It's open book pricing. And the other opportunity you have is, if you do this up front strategically wise, you can actually help keep the people that you have working in your schools now, your local vendors. That's the part I like about it, keeping the rural money rural is what I like to say.
So this gives you the opportunity to be able to do that and help control that some. The next slide, I'm still 2 slides down again for some reason. I just keep losing my place here. This is more or less just an example. It doesn't have anything to do with Harnett County Schools, but if you get the time, you can just go back and just to see how this works. But essentially, this is saying if you had a 900,000 square foot facility, you save so much money at the end of the day, you can see what this gives you if you're saving 25 cents, 10 cents, 25 or 50 cents a square foot to see what kind of project that would give you. That's a little bit of money per square foot, but at the end of the day, if you use that to finance a project, it buys you a lot of needed product. Next slide here. When the school system put out the RFQ, we had four vendors or 4 ESCOs submit RFQs at this process. Now, at this particular point, they can't come in and tell you what all they can do for the school. All they can do is give you a good judgment call on what they saw when they walked through some of the schools to see what all they might be able to replace. And most of them have done this for so long, they're pretty good at it. And one of the ESCOs had this in their presentation. I just pulled it out. I think Harnett County Schools got 26 schools.
I think there's 27 we're looking at in this.
Okay. Well, you got 27 schools. Well, we won't count the new one. With your new school, we won't count that one. Hopefully that was already energy efficient.
Let's hope so.
Yes, sir. But you got 26 schools that we would be focusing on. And based off of the chart that they had in there, they're looking at about a 30%, 29, 30% savings. And this is just a flyover. I'm sure when they start getting down into the weeds and seeing what all you do have, and they can really start putting a pencil to paper, you're probably going to find out that you got more than this. And this is what they're saying your equipment is inefficient by right now. So that $4 million that Steve was talking about, that's your utility budget. You take 30% of that, and you could use that to finance a project to fix your inefficient equipment. Next slide here. And that's what I'm saying here. This is the same thing. Using your financial leverage, you can see if you had a annual utility bill of $5.1 million, assume total savings of $1.7 million on that, estimated utility rates of $1 million, 15-year term, you're getting a $22 million project. And that's just quick math, back of the napkin math, but that's usually what it works out to be. And one of the other things that I haven't really said anything about right now is the interest rates are so low that they're trying to give away money. And plus, this doesn't cost the county or the school system anything other than what you're already spending. I can't emphasize that enough. Next slide here is just who has used it. You can see all the people that we have on here. Like I said, the DOT, NCDEQ, public schools, community colleges, the university. NC State's been through like 5 of these already. Community colleges, cities and towns are using it. They've got enough infrastructure in place. And I've got the only last one here, which Steve already mentioned it, but the Harnett County Schools actually did one of these projects back in 2003. What are the safeguards and guarantees? Again, here's that where I was talking about the energy service company. These companies it's like Johnson Controls, Schneider Electric, Amoresco. These companies are huge companies, but they're so huge that they're able to come in and do these projects and give you a guarantee that, look, we're going to set up a project where if we're telling you you're going to save $2,000 a month at this school, if you don't meet that $2,000 a month savings, we're going to step in and front the bill for whatever we missed it by. So if they say $2,000, you only get $1,500 of savings, they're on the hook to pay you, the school, that bill, that $500 additional money to make you whole again. And that's why only so many of these companies can do this in the state of North Carolina. And again, they have to be vetted through LGC and the utility initiative through NCDEQ to be able to do these projects. So again, there's only 8 of them out there that can do these. It's been around for a while. It's proven it's effective. And the other thing on here, you'll see the North Carolina Energy Office, which you probably haven't had a lot of dealings with, but I know you've had a lot of dealings with LGC if you've been on this board any time. And I know you guys got a lot of projects going on. So you're probably pretty familiar with LGC. You know how tough they are to get money or to let them to let you spend your money. That's how tough it is to get these projects through. So again, we'd go through the DEQ office, they'd go through me, and they would have to go through LGC to get these projects vetted. So it's closely monitored and looked at. Here's the real good thing is what it costs. Right now, it doesn't cost, is that me?
Did you bring sound effects?
Is that what you tell me to wrap it up?
Tell you to be quiet.
They're playing you off.
Well, I'll get this thing wrapped up here. The what it costs. Right now, again, it's $0. 0 out of dollars for you, for the county, and for the school system. It's more or less your existing utility budget that you're funding the school with. I haven't had a school system yet that I've worked with come in and the board was able to cut their utility bill ever. Normally, you're going to increase that because your utility rates are going up. Well, hopefully with this project, if we ever get it implemented and in place, you're just saying we're not going to increase or decrease your utility bill throughout the life of this project as long as you're under this contract. And normally it's about 15 to 19 years is normally where you're at. I have yet to see a school system or a county board decrease funding for utilities yet. You always go up, but I never see them going down. Now, I want to put a caveat with this now. If you add on schools, or you add on wings, or you do something to cause the school to get bigger, or you got to bring on more square footage now, you will have, you've got to put money in the pot for that. But for what you've got right now, if we took a snapshot of where you're at, it's saying you're not going to decrease the funds for that particular project. And that's really why we're in front of you today, to try to get a resolution passed for the board to say that. Again, it's just more or less a shift of money of where it's coming from. And at the end of the day, hopefully we're giving the kids a better environment, better lights, better air quality. And I know air quality is a big thing right now. And also just a better environment all around for them. The only thing it really costs the county is you guys to say, we're not going to decrease your utility bill. For the school system, the only thing it costs them is time and effort. Their people to be able to sit down when these companies come in to be able to walk through this process, and the school system say, this is what we need help with, here's what we got, here's where we're at. And hopefully at the end of the day, like Steve was saying, we'll hit a lot of it won't take care of all your needs. Don't get me wrong by that, but hopefully we'll take care of a lot of your CIP needs on the list. I think you've got 3 years out with those lists that you turn in. 8 years out, so hopefully we can take care of not all of them, but some of those, and that decreases what the county will have to fund or help the school system fund later on down the road. I think I've hit on most of these here, but what are the county benefits? Like I said, no out of debt for the county. Hopefully it covers some of your costs of the other projects. Another good thing that I haven't pointed out is this does not go on the county's books. I think you guys just finished up a new school. Well, with that new school, more or less, the county went and got the financing for the school, and the school is just going to be running it. Well, with this particular project, the county doesn't have to do anything. The school is their own entity on this project. The county, it doesn't show up on the county's books, and they're not using the county's credit score to go after this money. It's more or less the school is using their own backing to go get this money. Now, again, you're still going to not cut their funding for utilities, but that's what they're using the leverage wise to go get this money. So it doesn't show up on the county's books at all. So for a lot of places, that's big, especially if you've got bond projects and other major projects on the books, like this new facility we're standing in today. And I think, that wraps it up for me. Don't hit the music anymore, but I'm done. I was just asking any questions. Again, I knew we were sort of short on time, so I wanted to make sure I hit all my bullet points. But if you got any questions, by all means, ask them.
Maybe that music was our 9:45 time limit. Maybe that's what that was. Thank you for sharing that information with us. Commissioners, ask if you have any questions for these gentlemen.
Jonathan, what is the life of the contract?
Say that again?
What's the life of the contract? How long is it?
Typically, they're between 15 to 19 years.
15 to 19.
And I tell all my clients when we get to this point, we start looking at it. This is one of those events that's only going to happen probably once with the same people you've got at the school system or the county board now. Because you think over 19 years, we could all be somewhere else by then. But I tell my clients to get the most bang for your buck because you don't get to do this all the time. So get as much as you possibly can when you get to the table to cover as many needs as you want to. Because again, right now with interest rates the way they are, shoot, if they'd give me 2% money, I'd take all I could right now.
Yeah.
But like that's the general 15 to 19 years to make these projects work
All
out.
right, thank you.
Any other questions? Let's have any other questions? So if I understood correctly, then the responsibility that the county would have, backing away from the school system for a moment, would be that we would commit not to cut the current funding we're providing for energy costs for the school district.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And essentially, the company, the ESCO, if you will, is borrowing the money to replace or upgrade inefficient equipment to more efficient equipment.
Not entirely correct. They're not borrowing anything. The school system would be borrowing the money, just like you do a construction
School
project.
system's borrowing the money, they're guaranteeing the repayment of that money through the savings that they say they're going to get.
They're guaranteeing that when they get through doing, just like an engineer gets through doing what they say they're going to do, that pipe's going to flow this amount of water. This contract is going to fund this project. 0%. At the end of every year, they zero it out and start again.
If it doesn't fund the project, they're on the hook to pay the loan payments.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Unless the school system does something outrageous, I've seen some stuff happen, but unless the school system does something outrageous, leave doors open in schools, leave windows open during the summer, or change the intended use of their facilities, they're on the hook to make that work and guarantee the funding.
And they help monitor this. We, myself and some of the others that were on the committee to choose an ESCO, we went down to Brunswick County and they done theirs, 3 years ago?
Yeah, well, we finished up Brunswick about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, 4 or 5 years ago. And just so the day we were there, the ESCO that was there, they had somebody checking, monitoring. Are we still good? Are we on pace to meet this amount of money? And if not, they help you investigate what's going on.
I will tell you, Steve mentioned Brunswick, but I've got Bladen County, Bladen County, Alamance, Burlington, Rockingham County, Hope County, and again, we said Harnett County, but right now, Rockingham County has finished theirs up. I've had Steve in there, but I've actually took them out to a couple of these different school systems. Bladen finished up, they had major problems when Matthew and was it Floyd came through? They had major mold issues with some of their older equipment and dilapidated equipment. Well, since they've done this PC, you can call down and talk to their finance officer. They have seen their savings cover their project, and they actually had money left over to do other projects that they needed to get done. And it's been a huge benefit for them. And that hit right on the money when they needed it to take place, when they had those 2 national catastrophes happen, or those 2 flooding incidents. And then Rockingham County schools, they should be finishing theirs up this coming up April, but they're already seeing the savings on their equipment, and they're ecstatic with what they've got going on. Both of those. And Hope County's been done. Theirs probably been done 8 years ago. They've hit their target numbers every time. And I will tell you like this, Cumberland County is usually ahead of the curve when it comes to doing stuff like this. They've already done this 3 times. They're so good at it right now that they're actually able to do their own, which they've got people on staff to do that. They've got engineers and other people on staff that can actually do this type of stuff and make sure it's going the way it should be.
Any other questions?
Can I interject
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
moment, if you don't mind? So we've been dealing with this since about, I think it was November, the first time sometime last fall, we were talking about it. Since you guys are new, I just feel like I need to give you a little bit of background. So, the county doesn't have a problem with it, but what the county has been trying to do in cooperation with Harnett County Schools is try to do some of this through a pay-as-you-go concept through our CIP process. So we didn't have that before, and that's why they've gone to this approach. And again, we're not against it. We just want to, if you don't mind, we would just like to have a little bit more time for our budget staff to kind of work with Harnett County Schools And instead of doing every single piece of the project, which is over $20 million, we're wondering, is there a way we could maybe do part of it through the performance contract and then part of it through our capital improvement program and still get it funded in that same time frame? So I would just like to ask that you consider kind of a hybrid approach to this, if you're considering it at all. Instead of putting the $20 million out there for energy, boilers, chillers, every single, lights, everything, is there a way we can maybe scale it back a little and give our new process a chance to work as well going forward?
So the county, y'all been having conversations regarding this hybrid model?
We have spoken with the superintendent, and our budget people have spoken with Steve, but we haven't done the details yet. We're waiting to hear this presentation before we knew how to proceed. I think our last discussion with Steve was, let's just, our next steps would be coming to the board, and then if the board would allow us to work with Harnett County Schools. That's just my ask. And again, it's up to you guys. You can do what you want, but that was just a thought.
If you don't mind, can I just say one thing with that? I think that's a great approach, because some of the projects that you have on your CPI, like roof projects, facade, areas that doesn't have anything directly to do with energy savings, weatherproofing your buildings and other little, nuances like that. That's not going to be covered under your PC. So what this is going to do, and it's great. We did this same type situation in Bladen County. They had just got a bond approved, and they had some target areas that they were looking at. What we were able to do is step in, and replace some of the items that the bond was going to do, and they were able to use that money to fix some other areas that were tagged along, like their CPI, their actual needs on the project. The bond didn't cover everything, the PC didn't cover everything, but when you integrated them, it still didn't cover everything, but it got you closer to what you were looking at. And that's the same thing with what you're saying. And this PC project can capture as much as I'm gonna call it low-hanging fruit as you need it to. And the big ticket items, it takes a chiller 20 to 30 years, if at that, to pay back for it itself. So when you put that into a project, a PC project, yeah, it kicks it out a few years, but it's never gonna pay for itself. Lights, 4 or 5 years, they pay for themselves. Chiller, roofs, that's a 100-year payback, but it's needed. It's essential when it's needed. So when you do that hybrid model that you're talking about, it's a great fit. You just got to sit down and understand what the PC pays for and what your CIP program pays for.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Ms. Stewart, do you have anything else?
No, that's all I've got.
All right, thank you for sharing with us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, next we have employee survey results. Ms. Stewart, you want to introduce our guests?
Yes, today we are actually presenting the results of an employee survey that we did through the UNC School of Government back in the fall. This is an initiative that I've been wanting to do since I became manager, and we found out that the School of Government had this program called the Local Government Workplace Initiative. And so we spoke with Dr. Alicia DeHart Davis, who's with us today remotely, and she's going to go over the results of our survey with you. And we're hoping this is going to be beneficial. I think a few of the new commissioners had asked, had we had an employee survey done before, and we really feel good about this one because it's done through a research institution that knows how to look at data, how to interpret data, and how to help us move forward with the results. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. DeHart Davis.
Thank you, Paula. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you all see that?
Harnett County Workplace Survey 2020, yes, ma'am.
That's it. Great. Thank you. And thank you all commissioners for having me here today to talk about the results of the Harnett County Workplace Survey. So today we're going to be talking about the process that we used to implement the survey. And we'll talk a little bit about response rates and how you interpret those. It'll be important to think about how do you interpret survey results, because survey results don't interpret themselves. We will explain the 80-20 rule, which is how we identify whether individual survey items are excellent or good or room for improvement. We'll talk about what we do with the middle categories of questions, just so you'll understand whenever we're looking at some of these survey results, along with evaluating categories of survey questions, so you understand how we get there when we evaluate the different survey topics. And then we'll talk about the next steps that you might want to consider for the survey. So for the survey process, we implemented the survey in a platform called Qualtrics that's very easy to use. It's all online. And we kept the survey open from October 19th to November 6th. And Harnett County incentivized participation by providing administrative leave for 3 winners. And this produced a 52% response rate, which is thoroughly decent and not unusual for a first-time survey. So anytime you're doing a first-time survey in a local government, employees aren't quite sure what's going on and how confidential it is, even though we work very hard with Paula and her team to assure people that the survey results were secure and confidential. And so the first time you do a survey, it's not unusual to get about a 50% response rate. We'll be talking about 3 categories of survey results: highlights, mixed results, and hotspots. And to help you understand how we get there, let's first talk about interpreting survey results, because I mentioned before that survey results don't interpret themselves. They really have to be placed in context. And what that means is that you all know your organization better than we do. So we can lend some interpretation to the results, but you know what's going on within the organization and have much more context to provide meaning to those results. So we really jointly interpret the survey results. It's not just us, it's us together, Harnett County and the Workplaces Initiative together, figuring out what the survey results mean. You also have to consider sample size, because in these results today, you're just going to be seeing results across Harnett County, but large departments will weight those results. So you have to keep that in mind whenever you're looking at the individual figures that we're going to be showing you. And by the way, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. You'll have to speak up because I can't, you're very small on my screen, so. Okay, so how do we interpret individual survey items? So that means, whenever you have a survey question that asks, for example, agree or disagree with a series of statements, what we do is for each of those statements, we view the result as being excellent if 80% or more of the survey participants answered in the positive and less than 20% of the survey participants answered in the negative. It's a good result if survey respondents answered 80% plus positive or less than 20% negative. And it's room for improvement if survey respondents were less than 80% positive and 20+% negative. So does that make sense? Is everybody following that? We're really looking at the ends of the distributions of survey responses. Hold on one second here. I'm trying to advance. Ira, it's not advancing on me. Let me see.
The only thing I can think of is your focus isn't on the PowerPoint. I'm not sure on your computer side. Maybe you hit escape and see if it'll bring it back together.
Let's see, okay. Sorry about that, everybody. No, I'm hitting escape and it's not.
Not even taking it down, yeah. Yeah, Could we try?
Oh, there it is.
goes.
There it is. Okay. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Gotta love technology. Okay. So you might wonder, well, what do you do with those middle categories of your question responses where, you know, it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have a meaning where people say they neither agree nor disagree. What do we do with that? Well, we include the middle categories of a survey response if that middle category gives us something meaningful. So for example, when the middle category is something like moderately, sometimes, about half the time, we include that in either the positive or the negative side of the scale, depending on how the question's worded. We exclude that middle category of question whenever it doesn't really have any meaning, like neither agree nor disagree. Well, what does that mean? Where do we put that? Neither adequate nor inadequate, neither true nor untrue, and then neutral. So we exclude those. Okay, so now I've just talked about how if you have an individual survey item, how do we put a label on that? But remember that we have topics of questions, we have categories of questions. And so we evaluate categories of questions using 3 designations: highlights, mixed results, and hotspots. And I'm going to explain what each of these are as we go through and take a look at what your highlights, mixed results, and hotspots are. So highlights are when all of the survey items within a category of questions are either excellent or good. And for Harnett County, you have 5 highlights. So that's 5 categories of questions where every single survey item was either excellent or good. Now we're going to look at 2 of the, we're going to look at one of these. We're going to look at trust and management. But let's talk through a few of these. So organizational identification is when employees feel like that they identify with the organization. So it's responses to questions like, when I talk about Harnett County, I say we rather than they. And what we found in our research is that organizational identification is a very good indicator of morale. There's also resource availability. And with resource availability questions, we ask things like, do you have adequate physical resources? Do you have the training to do your job? Do you have the time to do your job? Now, what's interesting about the fact that this was a highlight for you is that this can be, resource availability can be either a hotspot or a mixed result for other local governments. So that's good that it showed up as a highlight. Supervisory evaluations is how well supervisors evaluate employees on their performance, particularly the fairness of that evaluation, the accuracy of that evaluation, the timeliness of that evaluation. So that's very good because performance evaluations can cause a lot of problems if they're not done well within a local government. We looked at teamwork, and we looked at teamwork both within the department and across departments as well. And this showed up as one of your highlights. And finally, we asked about trust and management, and that's one that we're going to look at. We're going to dive into that figure. Now, the figure here that you see is from a data visualization platform called Tableau. So where you can go to Tableau and you can pull down to different questions and see the results. And so these are just snapshots of what's on Tableau. And where you see here in the orange, what you want to see, the questions are color coded in such a way where you want to see more blue because that's on the positive end of the scale, and less orange, which is on the negative end of the scale. So we asked about 3 types of trust. Overall, I trust my department head. Overall, I trust my supervisor. And overall, I trust the county manager. So now what you're going to see here is in this overall, I trust well, let me actually start with my supervisor. So if you add up from 11% to 36%, that's the survey respondents that at least somewhat agree that I overall trust my supervisor. You're going to find that 78% of survey respondents say overall I trust my supervisor. With department heads, that same percentage is 77%. And with overall I trust the county manager, that percentage is 69%. This is exactly the pattern that we find across all local governments. There is the most trust in the supervisor, then the department head, and then the county manager. And the reason for that is power distance. People interact with their supervisors on a daily basis. They know them the best. So that's where you'll find the highest trust. But I want to call your attention to, in the overall I trust the county manager, you're going to see, if you counted up the percentages, if you had these to count up, you would see that only 8% disagree, or at least somewhat disagree, that they trust the county manager. So that's very interesting. That means that trust, compared to other counties, that trust in the county manager is solid. Okay, any questions about that? All right, I'm going to keep going. Okay, so your mixed results are where you see you have a survey question that has these multiple statements that people respond to. So with mixed results, you have what it sounds like, a mix of excellent and good, along with room for improvement. So we're going to look at a couple of these, but the first one is the COVID comparisons. This is where we're comparing different facets of the work environment as to whether it's stayed the same or whether it's gotten better or it's gotten worse. And for that particular set of questions, you had mostly excellence with only 2 room for improvements. And we'll look at what that means in a second. We had, for the diversity questions, we had 10 survey items. And out of those 10 survey items, there's only 1 room for improvement, which is a survey item that is a very common room for improvement for local government, which is the good old boys network is alive and well here. So again, out of 10 survey items, only 1 showed up as room for improvement. And what we figured out about that survey item, the good old boys network is alive and well here, is that, in local government, it's not uncommon for employees to perceive favoritism, and they tend to call that the good old boys network. So you have to think about kind of how you interpret that question. Organizational commitment came up as a mixed result, along with satisfaction with job facets. Supervisory practices, we're going to look at those. There were 6 items that pertaining to supervisory practices. All of them were good or excellent with only 1 room for improvement. And then the final mixed result category was employee voice. And that's defined as when employees raise opinions and ideas and concerns, and they felt like they're heard and they have formal opportunities to provide input. And so there was only 1 room for improvement, and that room for improvement was the statement, I am given the chance to contribute to important decisions about my workplace. So what that means is the way that we ask the questions, what we concluded from that category of questions is that employees feel comfortable raising issues and concerns, and they do feel like that they're heard when they do that. But there aren't as many formal opportunities for them to provide input. So that was your only room for improvement in that set of questions. So let's dive into the COVID comparisons. So remember, we asked, thinking about your workplace before COVID compared to after COVID, would you say that these aspects of your job generally have? And the options were gotten worse, stayed the same, or gotten better. Now, a tricky part of interpreting this particular set of questions is if they stayed the same and they weren't that great before, it's hard to know, kind of how to interpret that. But you know that you don't want things to be getting worse. And that's really what we're looking at. And we asked, I want to say, in 8 areas, these COVID comparisons. We're just showing you 4. And so you can see here, 13% say communications has gotten worse, 18% said has gotten better, 15% said decision-making has gotten worse, 12% said it's gotten better. Your only room for improvement is related to actually there are 2 rooms for improvement, but on this slide, the only room for improvement that you can see is the job. 30% say the job has gotten worse, 10% say it's gotten better. Now, what we don't show you here is that the other room for improvement is related to morale. And I don't have those specific percentages. We know that it'll be over 20% who say, morale has gotten worse. Now, here's something to know about this. We find the exact same pattern. We asked these questions in 2 other counties this past year. And it is the exact same pattern with the job, COVID comparisons related to the job and morale come up as room for improvement, which I think is fascinating and indicates something that's bigger and broader than just Harnett County. And, it's related to counties in general and local government. Okay, supervisory practices. So you'll see here that we asked 6 supervisory practice questions. You're looking at 3 here. And what you'll see is you've only got 1 room for improvement. How often does your supervisor do the following? And so 24%, I think this is at least somewhat disagreed. I'm trying to remember. Disagreed or strongly disagreed that supervisors ask employees for their ideas and suggestions when making important work decisions. Actually, that's not true. It's rarely or never. So 24% of supervisors rarely or never ask employees for their ideas and suggestions when making important workplace decisions. Now, this is consistent with the last survey result that we saw, or the survey result that I referenced related to voice. Remember, I said that employees feel like that they can provide their opinions and that their upper management will listen to them, but they don't have as many formal opportunities for doing so. And then, of course, you'll see here supervisors are encouraging, for the most part, are encouraging employees to look for better ways to get the job done, and they praise good performance by department employees. Okay, hotspots. So hotspots are where all of the survey items within a category are room for improvement. And you had 5 hotspots. And we're going to dive into, I think, all of these. There's burnout, something we call centralization, and I'll define that, organizational silence, rules, and workplace incivility. So let's start out by looking at burnout. So burnout is when employees are emotionally worn out. That's really what that means. And the reason that it's important to look at burnout, and this is actually a question we've just started asking in the Workplaces Initiative, is that it's linked to physical health and emotional health as well. So burnout is related to anxiety and depression and can cause a range of physical health problems. So it's something that you as an organization do want to pay careful attention to. And what we have been seeing, I mentioned that we've just started asking this question on our surveys, and what we're seeing is a lot of burnout in local government. So these are not uncommon results. So what you'll see here, so for example, over the past 30 days, how often have you felt the following way about your work? And the scale goes from not at all to extremely. So over the past 30 days, how often have you felt burnout from your work? And so what you're going to see here is if you add up a lot or extremely, you'll see that 29% of survey respondents said that they were burnout a lot or extremely. If you add in that moderately category, it goes to 52%. If you look down here at, over the past 30 days, how often have I felt fatigued when I got up in the morning and had to face another day in the job? If you add up these two orange percentages, 19% and 13%, so that means that 32% of survey respondents said over the past 30 days, they felt fatigued when they got up in the morning and had to face another day on the job. So something to think about, like where the burnout is coming and what can be done to alleviate it. Centralization is the concentration of decision authority upwards, but that means even for small decisions. So it's survey questions like, even small matters have to be referred to someone higher up for a final answer. I must check with my supervisor before I do almost anything. In general, an employee wanting to make his or her own decisions in my department would be quickly discouraged. Now, here's the thing about centralization. It tends to lower morale and slow down organizational decision-making. And we also, when we go in and analyze the data, we do statistical modeling, centralization is always the top predictor of things like turnover intentions. Because another way of, it's not exactly micromanagement, but it elicits that kind of feeling for employees. And so you want to pay attention to this. So just looking at this top item, even small matters have to be referred to someone higher up for a final answer. If you add up the orange, which is the somewhat agree, and strongly agree, that's 35% of survey respondents say that even small matters have to be referred to someone higher for an answer. Organizational silence is another hot spot, and that's when employees have an idea or an issue or a concern, and they make the deliberate decision not to raise it. And so the reason organizational silence is so important is that it hinders improvement in the organization. It hinders things like creativity and innovation. And so we want to at least look at that. And this is one of those questions where that middle category of sometimes gets added into the negative side of the scale. And by the way, this coloring is backwards, so I apologize for that. So what you see as orange should be blue, and what you see as blue should be orange, and then the gray is in the middle. So let's look at one of these survey items. I choose to remain silent when I have concerns. Actually, no, this is right. This is color-coded right. I was thinking the coloring is backwards. It's not, it's right. I choose to remain silent when I have concerns. So if you add up in that middle survey item, 27% plus 10% plus 3%, which you can't see, 40% of survey respondents say that at least sometimes they choose to remain silent when I have concerns. So what you have to ask yourself is, okay, given that 27% is in that middle with sometimes, how are we going to think about, organizational silence? Because there's going to be a certain amount of silence in organizations, but we do want people to feel like that they can speak up when they have issues or concerns. So it's just something to think about. And let me say something here, which I should have mentioned up front about the 80-20 rule. That 80-20 rule is an arbitrary standard. All survey results that are interpreted are based on arbitrary standards. So here's what that means. You have to choose a cutoff where you say these results are really good and these results are not so good. So keep in mind that we could have made the rule 70-30 and the results could look different. The reason that we had originally chosen the 80-20 rule is to really be able to, because we looked at the data and we saw how the data were being distributed, and it looked like those were natural breaking points that really delineated where something was excellent versus where it was good versus it was room for improvement. So should have said that up front. My apologies. Okay, our last hot spot Oh, no, we've got rules. So looking here at rules, of course, rules are important in any organization because they can be empowering, but they can also be hindering. So we asked a set of questions about characteristics of rules that we know from the research are associated with rule effectiveness. And so we ask about whether rules are consistently applied, whether they're effective, whether they're reasonable. And again, this is going to be one where the middle category is included on the negative side of the scale. Okay. So you're going to see here with consistent application, survey respondents said 36% of survey respondents said that some rules are consistently applied. 36% of survey respondents said some rules are effective. 31% said some rules are reasonable. And then a smaller percentages said that few rules or no rules were consistently applied, effective, or reasonable. So you have to ask yourself, are we willing to live with some rules being inconsistently applied, some rules being ineffective, some rules being reasonable? And I think this is where the follow-up interpretation comes in. Okay, final hotspot is workplace incivility. And again, this is one of those questions where the middle category is listed on the negative side of the scale. So workplace incivility is really about respect in the workplace. And the thing to keep in mind with workplace incivility, along with all of these survey questions, but particularly workplace incivility, is that it is a perception. And so sometimes people can perceive disrespect and maybe it's a misunderstanding, or sometimes they perceive disrespect and it's really disrespect. And sometimes people don't perceive disrespect when there is disrespect going on. So you have to kind of keep that in mind when you're interpreting these results. But what you're going to see here is, let's look at this last survey item. How often have you been in a situation where someone in your department put you down or was disrespectful to you? So you're going to see here that 52% say never, 23% say rarely. But remember that we're including sometimes in the negative side of the scale. So 25% say at least sometimes I'm put down or disrespected. And that's by adding up 15% for sometimes, 7% for often, and then that you can't see it, but that's 3% for very often. So to kind of wrap this up, we went in and we dove into all your hotspots and we looked at a few mixed results, and we only looked at one of your highlights. So really considering everything, you all haven't seen everything, but Paula, Brian, and I have seen everything. And really, there's a lot of excellent results here. With, you got many highlights. Your mixed results are really usually the result of just one survey item tipping you over into a mixed result category, and about 5 hotspots. So all in all, particularly for a first-time survey, typically you see a lot more hotspots in a first-time survey and more mixed results and fewer highlights. So these results overall are positive, but you're always going to, when you look under the hood for the first time, you're going to find some things that you can work on, which is a positive. So you may want to consider going forward, getting employees to help you kind of interpret these results and to identify workplace improvements that can be made, because that gives employees voice, and it also shows them that you're doing something with these survey results. So that's it. What questions do you have?
Thank you very much. Any questions this morning any commissioners would like to ask? Well, seeing none, thank you for your time this morning and for sharing these results with us and for giving us your opinion on where we stand as far as interpretation of that. It's much appreciated.
Okay, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, Mr. Larry Smith, I believe you're next. New Northwest Harnett Station update.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Not too bad. Hope everybody's well this morning. Before I get into the update on this, I just want to kind of give you a background, especially for our new commissioners on this. In 2018 and through 2019, we did an emergency services study. We had an outside company come in and they looked at our entire operation. That's all the fire departments, EMS, and even our emergency management staff looked at all of that. Some of those items they looked at were personnel, facilities, equipment. Was it fit for the job, things like that. One of the critical areas that they mentioned in our study was station needs in the 401 corridor, just based on the growth that's happening in that Northwest Harnett area. So what we've done after we looked at all that, we set some priorities with our Chiefs Association as we went through this. And Chief Prince actually immediately jumped on this because this isn't his district, this area that we're talking about. And they looked at it, working with us, working with the Office of State Fire Marshal's office, looked at a location that would fit to be able to include everybody within that 5 mile and also to provide that response that we would need for that area. They've found a location, and that's on US 401 North. It's in between the ends of the Calibit Road area. It doesn't have an address yet. It's just an open property. And there's 4 acres there. It's deep enough as far as the property goes to allow for for highway expansion down the road. So we're good there. He's looked at all of that. He's met with DOT. He's had them on site, and that was for looking at if there was a need for a turn lane, which they said there's not, which is good for the department because that cuts down on some costs there. They are at the point where they've had soils tested, surveys have been completed, they've got a station design in process, and part of the things that they're doing with that is one of the other items that was identified in that study was a need for an EMS unit in that area too. So what the chief is doing in that design process is actually including a bay so that we can put a Harnett County EMS unit in that station when it's complete. They've done some really good work on placing that in the right location. The chief had that included in his 2021 budget and his capital items as far as the land purchase and setting some money aside for the station build also. And right now he's moving forward. The big thing for us, that's going to provide those areas, those folks in that area, that'll bring his entire district within the 5 mile. For insurance purposes, it's going to be cheaper on the residents. But most importantly, in my book, is can provide some rapid response to those citizens along 401, especially as that traffic increases. That's like a super highway in the early mornings and the evenings too. So they're moving along with it. And I really want to thank Chief Prince. He has been very, very diligent on working on this. We had a little lapse in time, as we all know that Chief had been sick for a while. But they jumped right back on it, and we're moving forward. You have any questions?
Where on 401?
It's got a map right up here. It's the proposed station mark right there. It's in the center of the Calibit area on 401, the Calibit Road. There's a pond directly across the way from it. There you go. He's taken into consideration being able to have bunk rooms and all that so we can provide 24-hour coverage from that facility.
I'm glad you gave a landmark.
Yes. Yeah, they're ready to purchase actually. They've done all the surveying and they're ready to go.
Oh, okay.
He's ready to write a check for it. So but just kind of trying to give you an update on where that project is because I know there've been some questions on it, especially from our new commissioners.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. Smith? Any other questions, Mr. Smith? We appreciate the update, and thank you for sharing that with us this morning.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we have the next on the agenda, Harnett Cumberland boundary line proposal. Mr. Williams?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good morning.
Appreciate you letting me come and explain this to you. I guess I'll give you a little background first. We've been working with North Carolina Geodetic Survey, which is a part of North Carolina Emergency Management, and they do resurveying for the counties and for the state and I guess one of the biggest projects you might have heard of is they done the North Carolina, South Carolina line like 2 or 3 years ago. But they do all this at no cost to the county, and we've been working with them over the years. Like in the past, we've done Lee County. It's been completed probably 10 or 12 years ago. And some Cumberland County, Harnett County line stuff had been done also like probably 10 years ago or more, and it never got completed. And 2018, we did the Wake and Chatham County line, and that got completed and it was all successfully complete. So at that time, our commissioners requested that we do the rest of the county boundaries. And that's when we reached out to Geodetic Survey and requested that Cumberland County be completed. And we also got on the waiting list to do Johnston County. And we reached out to Sampson and Moore County, but they're not receptive to that right now. So right now, Cumberland County has been completed, and we have received the final plat from Geodetic Survey, but it never got completed because at the time, in 2019 is when we received the last plat. But at the time, Cumberland County was going through some software upgrades and stuff, and they postponed it a little bit, and then COVID hit, and so we've been stalled for a year or two. And recently, Geodetic Survey was showing the projects they had open, and this one's still open on their project list. And technically, like Chris might answer this better, but there's a rule they got in general cinema, the general statutes, where after a year, after both counties have requested this, they can go ahead and record the line and make it official without the county's permission, but because we did request it. But so my question to y'all today is, do you want to continue with this project? And I think Cumberland County is also reaching out to their board this week to see if they want to continue with this project. And if we do, I got the steps that we need to follow to complete it. I guess just try to get y'all's permission. And also, since we're on the waiting list for Johnston County, and there are a lot of, and the reason to do this project is for data accuracy. Like everything in the past, you know, with computers and everything now, is pinpoint accurate. And with 911 and a lot of other projects that the state are working on, it's important that we get our accuracy complete in it. And it forces us to work with these counties and know that this is the line, and half this property is in this county, half of it's in this county, and get it taxed correctly and get them voting in the right place, get them to the right schools. So that's the whole reason behind this. And then this Cumberland County project, we gained in the Wake County and Chatham County project, but in this Cumberland County project, I think we're going to lose a little bit. There's one little section along 210 that's showing out of our county now, so there'll be like 37 houses right in that one area that will be affected. But the way we've handled that in the past is we set up public meetings, talked to them, explained it to them, and the Wake County and Chatham County went really smooth, and there was hundreds of people affected in that deal. But I just want to get y'all's feelings on how you want to proceed, or if you want to proceed, or if you got any questions about it, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the commissioners?
I have a question. Where we're going to lose in the Cumberland County line, is it near the Spring Lake area or further up?
Yes, ma'am. It's right on 210. You know where McCormick Bridge Road is? Right past the Ray Road intersection stoplight. Yeah. Down from that little part is the most impacted. I think there's a whole little. I got some maps here I can show y'all.
From that Ray Road all back, you're saying?
No, ma'am. It's about a half a mile down from Ray Road to the Cumberland County line. It's just a little portion there where the line cuts right through a subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
Down by Tiger Beach.
Yeah, yes, sir.
How many houses did you say?
Total, there's going to be like 47 houses affected, but most of them are in that one little area. Mm-hmm. But we got a website online too. If y'all wanted to pull that up and look at it sometime, it should be in your packet. I don't know, but I can give you the website or email it to you. It should be at the top of that sheet right there. But that I'll let you zoom in and see exactly what you're going to lose. And we're gaining a lot of ground. I mean, a lot of property at acres, but most of it is in Fort Bragg's area, and we're gaining a little bit of Carver's Creek Park. So that's a lot of the acreage where we're getting, which is not taxable. But so I don't know if you got any questions. I don't know.
Any other questions? So if I understand this correctly, you would just need, you would need our approval, if you will, to continue on pursuing this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so since Cumberland County and our county, we have 2 new boards, and so, it was approved by both counties in the past. Because we got 2 new boards, we wanted to go ahead and get approval to continue moving forward. As Clint said, it got stalled. And so I talked to Rick Moorfield, the attorney for Cumberland County. He's taking his board to go ahead and get a thumbs up to go ahead and pick this back up and start moving forward, and same with you all as well.
Okay, now is this something we need to approve officially next week's meeting, or is this something we just informally agree or disagree on at this point?
At this point, it's just informally agreeing to go ahead and move
Sounds
forward,
good.
because whenever we decide on the line, and Cumberland County wants to, there'll be a resolution to approve the lines.
Okay, any disagreement to allowing, these gentlemen to proceed with this?
Go forward with it.
Okay. I think I see everybody's in consensus, so thank you, Mr. Williams. We would appreciate you continue to work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, discuss First Amendment of tolling agreement. Mr. Appel?
Yes, so I won't go into the details and the background of this. It's a potential claim out there, so obviously in open session I won't discuss the background facts. I'll just kind of go generally over what this is. So the original tolling agreement that was entered into 2019 was entered into with the county water and sewer district and engineers involved in the West Central Transmission Main and Booster Pumps Station project that started back in 2017. There is, potential issue with Garney Construction, which is who did the project, but the engineers and the county and the water and sewer districts entered into this tolling agreement. Again, a tolling agreement it tolls the statute of limitations and any other defenses that you may have. It just puts it on hold, and so if there ever is something in the future, we can essentially date back to 2017. So those defenses still exist and so on. That's the purpose of a tolling agreement, and it's just involved in all the other parties, not Garney, but all the other parties that were involved in this project. So the current one is set to expire March 12th, and so the amendment to the tolling agreement, the only thing it does is it extends it for another 2 years to March 12th, 2023. That's what the amendment does. Again, I won't go into details, and if you ever want an update, we have to do that in closed session. But I'd just be asking for approval to just essentially extend the term for 2 more years.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Appel? Okay, and is this something you need a formal or just informal agreement?
This will go next week's
meeting.
Agenda
Okay.
for approval and signatures.
Sounds good. All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have discussion of airfield lighting rehabilitation and AWAS replacement. Mr. Blevins?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, board
Good morning.
members. It's my first time presenting, so if I get disoriented, let me know. So I'm pretty excited about a couple of things before you. So a couple different things is that we are going to request that the board consider and approve us applying for grant dollars for the lighting rehab project. We are at a point now that we needed to apply. And along with that, what we're asking for, and it's something a little out of the ordinary that you may have seen before, but we're essentially would like to award the contract and send a letter of intention that we're going to award the contract based on funding and final approval of agreements and agreements for the funding and also their signed contract with the bonds and all the things that's required. So it's really pretty cut and dry. The I want to give a little bit of breakdown because you don't really see it here. We're going to be applying for $1.486718. That consists of $1,458,641 for the construction, $14,897 for Duke Energy. Duke Energy is going to run approximately 2,400 feet of line from Old Stage Road into the AWAS to energize that. That was something we decided early on in the project that we would take care of because it was so hard to bid. Everybody was confused about it. There's $2,500 we're estimating. CenturyLink is, we've had a hard time getting a hold of CenturyLink, but we're pretty confident that $2,500 for them to bring data from the AWAS back over to the terminal. All they really need to do is just lay the line, or actually run it through a conduit that's already there. We spent $680 for advertisement when we tried to bid this project out, so we're going to seek that reimbursement. And then $10,000 that we have to turn around with FAA dollars and pay them back to do a certification of the PAPI lights, which that's a requirement when we install them, so it's brand new. So the total is $1,486,718. Is there any questions on that?
Anyone have any questions? Okay, don't hear any.
Okay, just to make sure that another agenda connected with that will be to request that we do that intent to contract. And then final, one thing I'm pretty excited about yesterday afternoon, or it might have been in the morning, we received notice that we are approved for funding for the apron. So this year we will see 3 projects ongoing, so it's pretty interesting and really fun times for me. So
that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that information. Next on the agenda, Harnett Regional Jetport fixed space operator discussion.
Yes, I would just like to say that we received a request. We're bringing this back before you. We received a request from the Warren Trust attorney concerning the assignment of our FBO to an outside entity. So I just wanted to turn that over to the board. We've talked about it numerous times. I think the letter is before you from the prospective new management company. So I'll just turn it back over to the board to kind of deal with the options that you have at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Yes, this is something I think we have talked about and tabled at least once, maybe, I guess. Yes, so basically, and please interject or correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that we're at a point we have 3 options. We currently have a contract with Warren Warren Investments, and they have requested to be allowed to transfer that contract to Gary Peacock. So that would be one option. Second option would be there is a clause in that contract, if I'm correct, Mr. Pell, of notice 90 days to break the contract. So a second option would be to exercise that, develop a RFQ and for a FBO operation and rebid that. And third option would be to exercise that 90-day option to end that contract and to take over management of the airport by the county. That is pretty much in a nutshell the way I see it as I've looked through this and talked with Mr. Price and Chris and several others, but certainly if anybody else feels differently, please express that. If you have any thoughts or comments at this time, would like to hear those.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just what brought this about is unfortunately Mr. Warren passed away December 1st, so this brought the letter back in front of you, and you are correct. Those 3 options are on the table. So Chris, Barry, Paul, and I are here to answer any technical questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner McCoy?
If my understanding is right of the contract that the Warren was signed with Warren Oil Company, and the contract that in that contract, it says that if anything was to happen to, Warren, Mr. Warren or whatever, it says that the contract would automatically go to Gary Peacock. Is that not right? Can you explain that?
No. There's no clause in the contract that would automatically go to Mr. Peacock. It just talks about assignment in general, that the contract can be assigned with approval by the Board of Commissioners, which consent shall not be unreasonably withheld, so a good cause standard, but it doesn't, there's no automatic transfer. Now, if Mr. Peacock was to be, the contract's with Warren Investments, and so if there were other owners involved in Warren Investments, then the other owners take over, but it's my understanding is that Mr. Warren was the, I think, sole owner of Warren Investment, and right now it's with, it's going through the probate process. The executor is working out all the finances and all those entities to dissolve or sell or whatever property they have, but there's no automatic transfer of anything.
But that is the question I asked you after one meeting discussing this, because I wanted some clear understanding of it. And I read the material that was given to me, and that was what I assumed in the material, the way it was written. So there is no contract that says it automatically go to Gary.
Now, it would have to go through an official assignment process. So Warren Investment, the entity, would have to request the assignment go to Gary Peacock, which I believe he was setting up an entity, Warren Aviation. But there has to be a formal request to assign in which you as a board would.
So we have to make that decision.
You would approve it. Again, if you're presented with the assignment and you're deciding whether to consent to the assignment or not, if you decide not to, you have to have good cause as to not allow the assignment. Otherwise, you would have to consent to it.
Well, it still boils down to just what I said. To me, I don't understand all this legal stuff, but that's what I'm understanding. Let me ask you, is there any legal option if the county didn't award it to Gary Peacock?
If we did?
If we did not?
So if we don't allow the assignment, so if we're just talking about assignment and don't allow the assignment, one, you again have to provide a reason as to not why you want to allow it. And if there's good cause to not allow the assignment, then the contract, if Warren Investments doesn't want to continue on, then the contract would terminate. Because once the entity is dissolved, I'm assuming that the Warren Investment entity is going to be dissolved, that if it is, there's no one to contract with at that point. The contract would naturally terminate. Now, that's in the nature of what we're talking about, the assignment. There is the other aspect of this too, is there's a 90-day termination for convenience. You can terminate with or without cause. You don't have that reason. You could just provide notice that this contract's terminating, and that's you can terminate with Warren Investments. If the contract is assigned, the assignor, so it would be Gary Peacock's company, inherits all the same terms of the contract. So that would include that 90-day notice of termination as well. If a contract's assigned, all those provisions remain intact.
Am I understanding it right when you said that if the contract is reassigned to Gary Peacock, he has, in that contract, it gives him 2 years or more before we can reassign, if it was reassigned to another entity?
Well, the current term of the contract goes until 2023, right? I believe, yeah, 2023. So if it's assigned, he takes over again the entire contract, which includes the remainder of the term. So
2 years.
So 2 more years, 2023.
Okay.
But again, if the contract's assigned to Mr. Peacock, again, he inherits the contract as is. So all those provisions that Warren Investment had, he inherits, and so termination and duties and whatnot, everything transfers over to him. So it would just be under a different name.
Okay. Just want some clear understanding of what's going on here, because I don't want the county to end up in any legal options here. And it seems to me, by reading the material that I had, I won't say what my thoughts are. I'll leave it to the rest of the commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
I have a question. Mr. Blevins, did you ever finish the budget that you were putting together? for if the county were to assume operation of the airport?
We have submitted a budget for our, during our budget process. It ended yesterday, so we submitted that expansion, what we anticipate, and also we have some rough drafts. So we have two budgets that are in there, which is the continuity, continuous budget as planned, and then the expansion budget, which incorporates if we take it over. That's correct. So we had to plan for both.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue Warren Aviation a notice of 90-day termination.
Well, we'll need to do that at our meeting next week.
Well, we can get a consensus and put it on the consent agenda.
Okay, any more comments from Mr. Witherspoon's suggestion here?
I'm not sure what we're objecting to.
Mr. Witherspoon made a suggestion to consider whether or not to put this on the consent agenda to exercise the 90-day option to terminate the contract with Warren Investments.
Was that in the form of a motion?
Not a motion, it's a work session, so we'll, we can put it as a single item on the agenda for next week to further discuss and entertain a motion if Mr. Witherspoon puts that in a motion next week, or if everyone is in agreement with that, then we can put it on the consent agenda. So how would you like to proceed?
I would like to put it on the consent agenda.
Mr. Johnson?
We'll have more discussion on it.
Okay. So in that case, we will put it as a separate item for next week's discussion and have.
You didn't ask me.
Well, since we already had one, if we needed
I
to.
don't care.
But Ms. McCoy, what would you like to do?
Vote here.
Mr. Weatherspoon, is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody can pull
I
it
was
off. the
definitely
consent.
not trying to not include you, Mr. McCoy. So.
I know I'm a minority, but I still like to be asked.
Well, if it wasn't a consensus of everyone, I think we probably need to put it on as a separate item and discuss it next time. Are there any other questions that, or comments today that you would like to ask any of these folks? Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Coley. We appreciate that information. Next, we have the county manager's report. Ms. Stewart.
Sure. As you have before you, we've got the draft agenda for Monday night's meeting. And we did want to ask, do you want to open, we've got the two options. The meeting will be open to a limited number of public, or the meeting will not be open to members of the public. So if you can just let us know how you feel about that at the end of this. The items E and F on the consent agenda are the things that Mr. Blevins just went over for the airport. There's really not a lot on this agenda. Harnett Regional Water request write-offs, and then there's some more funds coming in from the state for the Division on Aging. And then the legal department, we add the tolling agreement as item 7, and we'll add the FBO operator discussion as item 8, and then we'll just move everything else down. So that's all for the agenda, unless there's something else you feel needs to be added to it. And then you also have before you your appointments that are needed for March 15th. There are several, so just be sure you have a chance to, if it's in your area, a reappointment or an appointment, just look over those to make sure they're being included on the 15th. And then on your upcoming meetings and invitations, we still have the tentative, well, I think it's not tentative anymore. I think we're pretty set on the date of May 3rd for our joint meeting with the Board of Education. Also, on Monday the 15th, at 4 p.m., we're going to have a special called work session to discuss some economic development initiatives. So if you can be here around 4 on Monday, that would be great. And then I have a couple other dates that we didn't put on your dates of interest because they're just optional. You've gotten the emails this week on our voting equipment demonstrations. The state board is hosting some voting equipment demonstrations by 2 of the vendors, and it's going to be tomorrow and Thursday. in preparation for our Board of Elections purchase of new equipment. It's in the CIP proposed for fiscal year '22, not approved yet, but it's just an opportunity for the board to look at the equipment. Each vendor has a 2-hour-long demonstration, and you would only have to go to one of those. So you go to one with each vendor. One vendor is named Hart, and one vendor is ES&S. And again, those, I can share that information with you again, but you should have received emails about those. And I think, Commissioner Weatherspoon, you've already responded, and you are gonna, so at least if one of you looks at the equipment, you know, all of you are welcome to. Again, it's optional, so just let us know if you would like to sit in on that. We can set it up in here or in the conference room for you to watch that remote demonstration of the equipment.
And that's tomorrow?
It's tomorrow. There's one session from 1 p.m. and one at 4 p.m. So it's a 1 hour. I'm sorry, I said 2 hours. 2 hours total, one with Hart and 1 hour with ES&S. So tomorrow is the vendor named Hart from 1 to 2, and then also from 4 to 5. So whichever one of those works for you, let me know. And then on Thursday, it's the ES&S. There's one at 10 o'clock and one at 2 o'clock. And it's only a 1 hour demonstration. Like I said, there were 2 hours, but it's for doing the same presentation.
I responded that on Thursday I already had a meeting at 10, and I have not heard back
Okay.
about Thursday yet.
Okay. All right. Well, you can just email us back. That'll be fine. And then also a reminder, tomorrow, again, tomorrow's a busy day. Tomorrow from 3 to 4:30 via Zoom, we're having the strategic planning interview with the School of Government. Commissioners Johnson and Nickel are attending on behalf of the board, and it's Zoom, so we can host y'all here for that as well. If you'd like us to do that, we can set it up in the conference room, or you can watch it from your home or place of business, whichever is good for you. But this is basically the opportunity for the School of Government to get an understanding of what we want to get out of our strategic plan. And again, they're going to follow up with a proposal on that as well.
What was that date and time?
It's tomorrow, March 10th, from 3 to 4:30. And it's over Zoom, so you can do it remotely, or you can come here and we can set up the conference room, whichever way is suitable for you.
I just want to do it here.
Okay, we'll set up the room.
Can I ask the question?
Yes, ma'am.
On the 401 Carter, when are we doing that?
On the what, I'm sorry?
401 Carter, when are we doing that?
401.
It's going to be set up on Zoom, right?
You talking about the Campo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the date of that. I think Commissioner Weatherspoon and you were part of that SOT team. So did they send you an invite to that?
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a week from today at 1 o'clock, or 1:30, excuse me.
And you'll realize now as county commissioners, you're always busy, but March, April, May, you're extremely busy because it's budget and everybody's going to be coming to you for money, and it's time to talk about all these plans and all these things for the upcoming year. So it'll get pretty busy here for a little while, and then it'll hopefully die off a little bit and then pick back up. So just know that there's a lot going on, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Anything else from Ms. Stewart? I would like to, if I could, just speak to the recommendation for Mr. Doug Godwin to be appointed to the Harnett County Board of Equalization and Review. As Mr. Appel shared, I guess last meeting on the change in the bylaws to go to 7 members. Those first 2 at-large members were not required to fill out an application, if I remember correctly, and the board, we could make recommendations, and I have asked that we make a recommendation for Mr. Doug Godwin, and I will get you some information on his background before the next meeting, so you can see that I believe he is extremely qualified to serve on that board. He's a certified appraiser in both residential and commercial, which I think will go a long way toward being a positive impact on that board. But I've asked Mr. Mariello to get me just a little bit of his experience and background, and I will share that with you before our next meeting. If you have any questions about that recommendation, don't hesitate to call me or email or whatever.
And one other thing I failed to mention, I'm so sorry, with the presentation of the employee survey results today, I just wanted to kind of gauge the board. We're planning to have some deep dives with our employees like Dr. DeHart Davis suggested. And I just wanted y'all to know that, you know, if you want to be involved with any of it or be on the, you know, work with HR, it will be working through HR since that's a function of their department. But if you want to be involved or anything, just let me know. But we're going to take these results and actually use the ones that the room for improvement, focus on those. Not saying all of them are not important, but the ones that were the hot spots, we're going to try to hit those first. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not referring to being on that, because I think that's something that you all should to address. But I want to say, listen, at the report, I am very pleased that things have improved here with the employees for over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. And I was really impressed with the outcome of the survey and all of that. So I just want to say that I can see a change. And the report from them tells me that it is a change. So I'm real pleased at the work that the county is doing with the employees in this county, because it has always been like that. And the last thing I wanted to say is on this Harnett County Labor Management Committee and all, how long has that been organized? I've never seen that on.
Which one are you referring to? I'm
The
sorry.
bottom line here, it says Harnett County needs to replace one non-participant member on the board of joint labor management.
I'll have to check into that. We received a letter recently from the Triangle South Workforce Development Board requesting these seats. So let me just, I'll contact them and find out exactly what they're needing for that one.
Yeah, because I've never seen this before. That's the reason I'm asking a question about it.
I'd like to make a comment. I would like to volunteer to be on that group. Because, I mean, I'm not really worried about the ones that are satisfied and happy. You know, my main concern is going to be for our 10 to 20%, ones that are, you know, actually having issues. I need to listen to them, because there's always something that we can do differently. There's always room for improvement.
Okay, great. I'll add you to our list.
Anything else? Yeah, I believe we do have a need to go into closed session this morning.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I move the board go into closed session for the following purpose: to consult with the county's legal counsel in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege concerning the handling of certain litigation or claims, including the following case: RCG Dunn LLC versus Harnett County Property Tax Commission, file number 19 PTC 130 : and number 2, to discuss a personnel matter. This motion is pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 143-318.11A3 and 6.
Thank you, Commissioner Witherspoon. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We'll now go into closed session.